Hey everybody, Spy4360 here. We're going to be having a very long video today. This is a masterclass on Moira, and a pretty, I'd say, light overview on how you should play her. Don't look at the time bar, but I'm saying it's light because I am one of many top 500 Moira players, and every single Moira I've seen in top 500 plays the character extremely differently. So everything that you see in the guide is pretty bare bones. I don't really go over many philosophies because genuinely you should just be playing how you want to play Moira. There's so many ways to find success on the character. But yeah, it's a long video. So long that I'm having a table of contents somewhere. It's on screen right now. So while that's going, grab yourself a snack, get something to drink. Yeah, get strapped in because we're gonna be here for a bit. Yeah, I'd also like to say please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them in the comments. And links to all of my socials are in the description down below. So without further ado, let's get into the good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hey everybody, we're going to be talking about Moira's healing resource. It took a lot for me to say, or for me to not say the other word. If you know, you know. The healing resource is pretty simple. Basically, you spray and people get healed. There's some advanced techs with this. You can heal people around the wall, so like I can't see them, but they're still getting healed. It kind of works like a cone, where like there's a wall here, right? And the cone will get stopped, and then once it passes the wall, it'll cone out. So you can heal people around walls. So like say there's like a Widowmaker, like right there. You don't even need a peeker. You can just, I almost said the word, but healing resource around the wall. When you right-click somebody, or Biotic Grasp, might not be your right click, but when you start damaging people, you'll get healing resource back. This is actually not the most efficient way to get your resource back. Here's a quick comparison of getting resources back with your right click. As you can see, holding right click is the slowest, and my scroll wheel is broken, but if you're using your scroll wheel, this should be the fastest. But for these examples, right-clicking, just spamming right-click, is the fastest. You can also get your healing resource back using orbs. So, we're out of healing resource, or we're about to be. And throw a damage orb, and we're regenerating healing resource. It's not that much for like a full 200 damage healing, full 200 damage orb. But it's something, you know, especially if you can't get in, you're just like doing this, you do one of those, and you're getting healing resource back. Okay, on to some boring numbers. You heal at 70 health a second, and then after you do the initial spray, you're giving 17 healing a second for 3 seconds. So just hitting people with a spritz is a good way to get some passive healing. It's kind of hard to show it, but you can't heal through enemy barriers. So take that in mind. If you get your teammates like Winston bubbled off or something, they won't get healed. Same thing for these orbs. They don't heal through barriers. This is also a projectile. So I don't know what the best way to show this off is, but If these guys were moving, you would need to lead your shot a bit so that they move into the spray. It's a pretty fast projectile. The only time you're going to need to worry about that is like with like an Echo or a Pharah or like a Lucio or something. You just have to lead your healing resource a bit. But yeah, that's it for your healing resource. It's pretty simple. Alright, now we're going to be talking about the Biotic Grasp, the suck. This is even simpler than the heal. Basically, you just right-click, and you're doing 65 damage a second. It has a range of 20 meters, so this is as far as you can go. Something interesting about this being 20 meters, for Hog specifically, his hook is also 20 meters. So if you can suck a Hog, then you're in hook range. So just be wary of that. It's pretty useful to just like be right-clicking at a Hog and then just like inch up to your suck range, and then once you start hitting him, you know that you're in danger. They changed how damage works for Season 9. Before Season 9, it was worth it to right-click and then melee. That was more DPS, but now it's just higher DPS to constantly be right-clicking. And you do get a little bit of burst, so when somebody's low HP, you just finish them off with melee. Specifically fighting characters with shields, you're not going to be able to get much right-click damage in, so it's useful to melee, just because they might shield. This is for like Ryan and Brig, where like mid-fighting you, they'll just pull up their shield. If you just weave in some melees, this is the only time where it's like worth it. It's if there's a shield involved. When you're right-clicking, you're healing 30 health a second. And that's regardless of if you're actually doing damage or not. So if you're right-clicking through a Bat Immortality field, or like Doomfist, or Ramatra, or the new guy, I don't know his name, the Scottish dude, you know? And what's his name? I don't know. But if you're right-clicking and they're blocking, or like you're getting Bat Immortality field, you'll always heal 30 health a second. As long as you're hitting a person. Deployables don't count. Bob does, but like Symmetra turrets, Torb turrets, Symmetra TP, all of those don't count. You have to be hitting like a person or Bob. Forgot to mention probably the most important part about her right-click is that against armor, you're going to be here forever. So I'm just going to right-click Orisa and start explaining this. Basically, armor reduces damage by 7. Unless it's a beam, then it reduces it by 30%. So you're doing 65 damage a second, but against armor, you're doing like 42. That's not the biggest deal, but against Orisa, it's very oppressive. It takes a very long time to just right-click Orisa to death. On top of that, most characters have like damage mitigation if they also have armor, so it's just hard to get through. She's got roughly like 300 armor, so this guy also has 300 health, and look at the difference. He's just dead. As opposed to going through Orisa's armor. Like, you could straight up just get up and go make a sandwich or something. This takes forever. Next, I'd like to talk about balls, or orbs, biotic orbs. You can throw them as a heal orb or a damage orb with the suck or healing resource buttons respectively. There's a lot of different ways to throw your orbs. They bounce off of walls, so ideally you want to get them to bounce back and forth forever. The damage orb only does 200 damage, and the healing orb only does 350 healing. And then I believe it's at a rate of 65 healing a second, and then 50 damage a second. So there's a lot of different ways to throw orbs, and there's a lot of different metrics of getting value out of your orbs. So the biggest tip I can tell you is try to get the full 350 healing or full 200 damage out of them if you can. So like if you throw a damage orb like that, you get a bit of damage. That actually used all of it, which I'd say that's a good orb, you know? But ideally the perfect orb is just to do one of those where it bounces up and down and you're constantly ticking on these guys. Same thing for a healing orb. If you throw an orb that's like that, it stays there forever, and you'll potentially get the full 350 out of that. So I'll sometimes intentionally wait a little bit to take a little bit of extra damage before I throw an orb, just so that I get like more of a heal out of it. So like I'm half HP and then I'll throw an orb. And I still don't think this gets like the full 350. Yeah, it despawns before I get the full value out of it. But since I waited, I got more value out of it. And you're not always going to have like a perfect orb where you can throw it up and down like this. So if you're against a target that's moving, it's pretty important to aim at their feet, because if you throw it straight on, it's going to stay on them for less time, unless they're moving with it like that. But if you throw it at their feet, it stays with them for longer, which is cool. Same thing for like somebody on your team. If you throw it at their feet, you get more uptime with them, as opposed to if you just threw it straight. It leaves their effective range a lot faster. So if you don't have anything to bounce your orb off of, aim at their feet, and then if you have an angle where you can just bounce it infinitely, these are going to be your best types of orbs. Just throwing them like that. So your orbs move at 5.5 meters a second when they're getting used, which is the same walk speed as a person. If you throw it at an enemy who's walking in the same direction as your orb, they'll stay with it the whole time. And then when it's not getting used, it starts moving at 20 meters a second. That was vertically, so it's harder to tell. But interestingly, your fade is the same speed as your orb. So if you're getting damaged and then you have to fade, you'll keep up with your orb when you come out of it, which is pretty cool. And then I'm going to be talking about this more when we talk about Coalescence, but you can throw your orb and then keep up with it. So you'll be coaling with your orb right as you get to the person. It's pretty cool. Another important metric to think about is Moira's burst potential. Combining your heal with an orb will basically double your healing. You're adding 65 healing a second to your 70 healing a second, so you're healing 135 health a second when you use your orb and your healing resource, which is pretty nuts. And then likewise, adding your orb to your damage brings your damage up to 115 damage a second. So you can kill most characters in just 2 seconds if you combo your orb with your right click. It's very potent and very deadly. We're going to be talking about comboing your orbs with your Coalescence later in this guide. But just make sure you get into the habit of saving your burst, with the exception of healing, but saving your burst for comboing with an orb. Because it'll make a lot of kills cleaner, and people don't react as fast if you combo an orb with your damage. That guy was low, but the principle applies to most situations. Yeah, so damage orb does not affect the actual damage of the orb, it just makes it tick faster, so it bleeds out quicker. Can you play Moira? Just do like an infinite orb, like right here. Yeah, so the Mercy just needs to be damage boosting as they throw out the orb. You're good. Yeah, as long as you're damage boosting as they throw the orb out, then you'll get the damage ticks from it. Yeah, we're good. I got the stuff.
Still watching over you.
Here, can you play Anna?
Submission is
Yeah, just nano me.
Engaging the enemy.
Yeah, you're good.
You're powered up. Get in there.
Wow. Yeah, that just increases the tick rate too. That's depressing. Yeah, and then do BAP.
Baptiste here.
Yeah. You can shoot him, so you get it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let them out. Your end is within my reach.
Yeah. So this makes it run out really fast, because it passes through the window, instead of like it bouncing 3 or 4 times. Yeah, okay, we're good. Alright, so we're going to be talking about Fade. It's pretty simple. You basically just go faster, and you're intangible. Nothing can hit you while you're in Fade. It also cleans off most status effects, so if you're antied by Ana, that goes away. If you're hacked, I was going to say Hawk. If you're Hawk 2'd by Sombra, the Hawk goes away. Same thing with Virus. Virus gets cleansed. Ash Fire from Dynamite gets cleansed. So, it's pretty good. The coolest part about Fade is you can do Fade jumps. So normally you can't get up to this high ground if you Fade, or I think if you're up here you can make it, yeah. Oh, I overshot it. But if you have an object to bounce off of, you can increase the height of your Fade, and it's pretty good. Like, you can't get up here normally from down here. Oh shit, you can right there, if you go through the ballasts. That's cool, I didn't know about that. Yeah, if you're going that, you can't get up there. I think you can Fade jump off of that. Ooh, but it's hard. There's a lot of spots where you can get a lot of height to get up to higher places, which people wouldn't expect a Moira to get up there, because it's like a weird movement ability. This is a really hard Fade jump. If you're like running from people out here, you can almost had it. You can hit that as a Fade jump. This is a really hard one. Oh, also, I don't know why, but I'm in a custom game by myself, and you can see in the top left, I've got 128 ping for some reason. When you're on ping, you want to time your Fade jumps a little bit earlier. So normally I would hit space like right as I'm about to hit this piece of geometry. But since I have ping, I'm hitting it a little bit earlier. Oh, well, that was too early. But you get the concept. Oh, that's another hard Fade jump. I don't know how I hit that the first time. Yeah, there you go. But fade jumps are pretty good. They get you into back lines when you normally shouldn't be. This is a fade jump. If you fade jump off of that, you can make it over that ledge. You can also combo with your ultimate. If you fade, you can see I go a little bit faster. I'm going 21.45 meters a second when I fade, as opposed to 19.25. Which is pretty cool. There's a couple of spots where you need to be ulting and you fade to hit the fade jumps. Yeah, but it'll also help you get over... Oops, that's too early. This is a fun fade to do when you have your ult. Oh, the ping's killing me. Oops. Oh man. Yeah, you can see how finicky these are. You might be like, oh, just don't do them, but like, you can get some crazy flanks. There we go. Yeah, you're in the back line with that fade. You can fade jump off of like pretty much anything, so you just gotta find the geometry and use your creativity. Moira is a very creativity rewarding character. You can hit some nasty fades. But yeah. I also forgot to mention one thing. So this is probably like the only use case for this in the game, but or I mean, there's probably other ones. I just haven't come across any yet. If you walk off of the ledge and then hold space, you get a B-hop. If you jump off of a ledge and then hold space, you don't get it. So you need to walk off of a ledge and then hold space. You get a B-hop. Particularly with fade, there's this spot right here where if you walk off and then fade, you can B-hop, and that perfectly gets you through this ledge, which is pretty cool. And you can do that from both sides. You can do that from right here. Of course, you can just... Oh shit, I fucked it up. You can just jump and then re-jump off of this roof, but it's really tight. So sometimes, oh my god, you mess it up. Whereas if you just do the B-hop, it's really consistent. Yeah. So there's a lot of advanced movement tech that you can use with her fade. Pretty cool. People underestimate the amount of tech that her fade has, which is pretty depressing. Alright, so next we're going to talk about Coalescence. Coalescence is probably the simplest ability in Moira's kit, funny enough. It's got a range of 30 meters, and you hit everybody in like a 1.4 meter radius where the beam's coming out. It heals people for 140 health per second, and it damages people for 85 health a second. So the more people you can like collateral with this, the better. It also pierces shields if that guy has shield up. I can show off on this guy. It pierces and damages shields, so it's very good. Yeah. On top of all of this, you get 55 healing a second, personally, when you use it. And you have a 40% movement speed buff. So this is one of the stronger parts in Moira's kit. You also have a relatively low charge to get your ult. I'll put the graph up on screen, but like you're one of the people who get their ults first. And on top of you putting out a lot of healing stats, damaging stats, you're going to have this high pressure ability fast, and you should kind of just look for any opportunity to use it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Cole. It's very simple. It pierces shields, 140 healing a second, 85 damage a second, and it works with Nano, unlike your Orb. So you will get extra damage from Nano, Juno Beam, Mercy Beam, and yeah, those are the only things that affect it. So try to get a lot of value out of it. Alright, so we're gonna teach you the most important Moira tech. This is some Eldritch Horror tech. Oops. Oh. I broke my phone case. That's bad. But yeah, this is some Eldritch Horror tech. Aptly named because of the skin. But you're going to want to go to Mask Dancer. Put that on. Then you're going to want to put Facepalm. You can already see it. The emote on. Yeah. Swap out the dancing. So, yeah, you can already see where this is going, right? So you're looking at a Widow, you fade up behind her, and you really need to dodge a shot. You hit her with one of these.
I will find the key.
How do you hit that? This isn't really good against, like, Reinhardt or anybody, but... goddamn. Alright, yeah, that's it for the tech. Hope you guys like it. Alright, we're going to talk about AD strafing. The best way to practice AD strafing is to get into free-for-all, and literally just be as annoying as possible. Don't kill anybody. This guy missing on purpose. But yeah, just try to stay alive for as long as possible. Damn. Oh man, he hit the headshot when I crouched. But yeah, I'd just, in the middle of Q go into deathmatch, and, like, not even kill people. Because, especially on Moira, it's kind of fucked up. Damn. But, like, not killing people will give you good fade discipline for cooldowns, and it'll get you really good at AD strafing. You have different AD strafing patterns. Damn, this guy's hitting shots for like every single character because they shoot differently. Ugh, I hit fade. Is there ping on this? I've got good ping. Yeah, this is how you get good at AD strafing. Oh my god. Also, this is kind of funny because you're Kovacs for this guy. Yeah, this guy, beneficial for both of you when you're AD strafing. Try to do this to people in spawn too. See if they kill you. Oh shit, he got me. I was gonna go into like a real deathmatch, but my last queue was an hour long. Oh, he had a heady. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to get, like, good footage for this. It's like nobody's in the deathmatch. The higher up you get. Oh, he did have to reload. Shit. Damn, this guy hit shots. Yeah, Cassidy kind of counters you. You're gonna see that. I have, like, footage of 1v1s. But the more you do this, the better you'll get at AD strafing. Damn, you didn't even hit any shots.
Yes.
Love. Thank you /3.
So, this segment is going to be a lot more philosophical, just because I don't have good footage for it. I'd need to compile, like, probably like 20 plus games worth of footage to show off every single playstyle and then, like, positioning that I'm going to be talking about in this video. Or in this section, not this video. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about positioning and the playstyles that I use on Moira. The best part about the playstyle section is every single Moira I've seen in top 500 uses a different playstyle. And playstyles change, at least for me personally, playstyles change based on the situation of the game and the situation of what's going on in any given team fight. But I'm going to explain Moira's playstyles first, and then we're going to talk about positioning. Because the positioning goes off of the playstyles that you're dealing, or that you're doing. So, first off, she's got a lot of different playstyles. My personal favorite is playing Moira as a tank, being your front line. This is most commonly seen when you have, like, a Doomfist or a Ball on your team, and your team doesn't really have, like, a traditional front line, because they're, like, your main tank is in the back line, you know, they're fucking around and making space. So you have to be a front line. It's pretty easy for Moira, unless they have, like, a lot of burst. So, like, Widowmaker, Hanzo, Torbjorn can burst. Certain tanks also have a lot of burst. But as long as you can kind of frontline against, like, low burst characters, it's easier for you to just, like, throw a heal ball and, like, self-regen. And you're kind of tanky, you know? That being said, outside of you having, like, no frontline tank, you will also just tank in a lot of situations. As an example, Moira is really good at payload princessing, because when you have a payload princess, usually flankers will come and flank the cart or the objective, and there's only one person on cart, which is Moira. So you can, like, out-tank a lot of the flankers' damage, especially, like, if it's a tank, like it's a Winston, or in some cases Doomfist. You can tank a Doomfist. It's good for you to just be a tank, you know, and just absorb damage for your team. And if people are looking at Moira instead of, like, squishy DPS or squishy supports, it's a lot easier for your team to deal with that threat than if they were, like, to look at the actual damage dealers. But yeah, that's pretty much it for tank. Speaking of damage dealing, Moira is pretty good at DPS. You can be in the middle of your team DPSing with, like, a Moira pocket or a Mercy pocket. Same thing if you've got a Zenyatta and a target is discorded. You're pretty good focus fire for discord targets. I end up DPSing a lot against Sigma, Diva, Junker Queen, and Doomfist. because Sigma, Junker Queen, and Doomfist don't have armor, so you kind of shred them. And then D.Va can't get shot from most damage sources in the game when she's DMing, but just that little bit of right-clicking will break D.Va out of mech. So, in a lot of cases, some games you're just DPSing the whole game. You're not even healing, and if you are healing, it's just like throwing a heal orb and then keeping up your DPS pressure. And then, obviously, Moira is a support, so you're going to be supporting your teammates a lot. With certain support lineups, all you're going to be doing is supporting all game, which isn't a bad thing. It's good to support your team, and that leads to a lot of good learning situations when you're supporting your team, and knowing when you need to support and when you don't. Because even on lineups where you're like mainly supporting your team, you're not going to be healing 24/7. You're going to be DPSing or tanking. But yeah, Moira kind of fills DPS, tank, and support roles, and I'm talking about like the most generic forms of these roles, because there's a lot of other things that you can do. Mainly pocketing a certain DPS or tank. That's another role that you can fill on Moira. And usually this is kind of parasitic, but it can also be symbiotic, where you're both fulfilling goals of, like you're getting a tank in and they're also peeling for you, instead of like you just using your tank or your DPS to get into their backline. But for the most part, when you are pocketing a certain character, you're using them to get into the backline. Because it's really hard for Moira to get into the backline herself without expending cooldowns. If you have a friend with you, it's easy to kind of just walk into their backline. And then probably, I'm not going to say her last playstyle, because Moira is so versatile that you can almost do anything other than like crowd control. But her last main playstyle is flanking. Moira is very exceptional at flanking, and you can kind of do this by yourself as long as you've read the situation correctly. Flanking with another person, or using them as a pocket until you can like get correctly set up for a flank, is obviously easier, but a lot of the times I'll just flank by myself when the occasion arises. And there's actually some games where it's like I get stuck in their backline, so the entire game I'm just flanking, and it works. You just need to be good at fighting, recognizing threats, and 1v1ing, which we're going to be talking about later. Positioning. So earlier I talked about Moira's healing resource range being 15 meters, and her right-click range, or her Biotic Grasp range, being 20 meters. And you kind of want to be in range of either one of those. And I'm talking like 24/7. If you're not using your healing resource or using your Biotic Grasp, you're missing out on a lot of value. Every single other support in the game has some sort of utility, and Moira's only utility, in quotes, is her damage and her survivability. So you either need to be wasting people's time or using your resources being your suck or your healing resource. I will play with a tank or a damage or a support and use my healing resource until I am in right-click range, and at that point I am usually always right-clicking if I have a good target to right-click and everybody around me is relatively healthy, right? You might be like, oh, just always pocket your teammates, make sure they're 100% healthy instead of relatively healthy. But as Moira, and especially the higher rank, the higher rank that you climb, you are kind of in a race with the enemy team's resources. because I'm not going to say every other support, but mostly every other support just reloads, or they like just heal passively. So you run out of resources and then you're kind of tapped. You need to do damage or like tap right click to get your resources back. You can prolong your resources, but it's much easier, and it's also damage mitigation if you just kill their supports, where Moira excels at killing basically the entire support lineup other than herself. But if you can kill their supports, then your healing is vastly greater because they have one less support. And if you run out of like healing resource, then it doesn't matter because you have another support. Unless you guys traded, but that's more complicated. So with that in mind, that you're positioning to get into their backline, you will want to either play main with your tank and then kind of just walk in with him. Play with flanking tanks so that you can get into their backline and then kill their backline, right? Or you want to just solo funny flank and just flank on your own. Those are the three things that I end up doing. Positioning wise, you also want to take off angles, so the enemy team is forced to look at either your team or you, instead of just like you're playing main with your tank, your team, and they're just like shooting down at all five of you. Because even if you're playing main, if you just go to the left or to the right slightly, you can create like a soft off angle, and that will help with your pressure immensely. Sorry. Other than that, Moira is a fantastic payload princess. This is probably the biggest takeaway from positioning, is tell your teammates to push up. And you can usually throw orbs into the fight and still be useful. I would try to walk closer to the team and get into that 15-meter heal range, so you can heal people and throw orbs at the same time. But other than that, payload princessing, is incredibly valid on Moira, because you can throw damage orbs and heal orbs from cart, and if you need to, you can coalescence from cart, which has a very long range, so you can usually always be useful just playing on cart. It's very good. It's nice. So, really quick, I'm just going to talk about Moira's positive pairings, or I'm just going to talk about her pairings with like every character, pretty much. And that's every character with Hazard in the game. And I'm going to start out with DPS, because this is the least nuanced of the groupings. because depending on what support you're going to be playing, you're going to be playing completely different. Same thing with like tanks. Depending on which tank you have, you're going to be playing completely different. But with DPS, most of your DPS, it's kind of like very similar play styles. For Ashe, Bastion, kind of Cassidy, Hanzo. Actually, let's just say Ashe, Hanzo, Widowmaker, and kind of Torbjorn, but Torbjorn can be played a lot of different ways. These characters, you're going to be pocketing them in the backline, and Moira's pretty good anti-dive, so you can kind of keep these guys safe and kill targets that dive these characters. So Moira's pretty good with these guys. And then we're going to be talking about kind of like mid-range characters, so like Bastion, Cassidy, Junkrat, Mei, Reaper, Sojourn, Soldier, kind of, and then like Symmetra, and then again probably Torbjorn, and then Venture. If you're playing like more of like a frontline character, Moira will just be like good to pocket these characters with. Most of these guys, you're kind of treating them as lemmings, just because you need to get into the enemy's backline to get a lot of value on Moira. You don't necessarily need to do that. Like if you're pocketing a DPS and they're popping off, that's good. You never need to go into their backline. But to end a fight, you want to get into their backline. And using a distraction from one of these characters is going to do it. And then I want to talk about Tracer, Echo, Genji, Sombra kinda. Dive. Oh, also Reaper. You can dive with Reaper. But these characters Moira excels with. There's a lot of games where you're just like with a DPS in the backline for like the entire game, just being a nuisance. And Moira enables this really hard. Particularly Genji and Tracer are kind of invincible with a good Moira. So it's good to have that. And then lastly, I want to talk about Pharah and Echo. I lost Pharah. Yeah, there we go. Good luck. It's hard to heal these two. You have 15 meters of healing resource, so just chasing them. Also, your healing resource is a projectile, so it's hard to hit these guys in the air. But on certain maps where you're holding the high ground, it's good to kind of pocket them. Yeah, and then moving on to probably a lesser important part than supports is which tank you're playing with, and I'm just going to go through each individual tank because it's genuinely different for every tank that you're playing with. Diva, you have very good dive potential. You can follow her when she dive supports, or just like keep her up when she's defense matrixing. You have a lot of burst heal, so you can kind of just ignore healing Diva up until she hits her like her white health, and then you start like you throw a heal orb at her, and then you start using your healing resource to get her back into her armor. You want to keep Diva armored as much as possible. So like follow her with dives and try to focus the people that she's diving, because just like a little bit of right clicking will kill people sometimes. Diva's really good with Moira. You'll see with most tanks, they are either lemmings that I'm using to get into the backline, or I am pocketing them as they dive the backline. So Diva falls into the latter category, where you're pocketing them so that they can get into the backline. Doomfist is the same thing. You can keep up with Doomfist rollouts most of the time. Some of the times he just leaves like across the map and you can't keep up with him. But you can throw him healing orbs. So you can stay with like your Widowmaker or Hanzo in the backline and throw a healing orb to where Doomfist is going to land and keep him up. But for the most part, you also want to do the thing with Diva where you just dive with Diva and keep him up, or focus the people in their backline. Because Doomfist will eat up a lot of cooldowns. Doomfist will eat like sleep, hacks from Sombra. Also an interaction with Sombra, because it's really easy to track Sombra. You can kind of just keep Sombra from hacking Doomfist, which is really good. But yeah, like Brig ults, Doomfist will eat that. Cassidy Flash, Doomfist will eat that. And if they're using resources on Doomfist or on you, then the other person gets free reign. So if they sleep anti-Doomfist, then I can do stuff. If they sleep anti-me, then Doomfist can do stuff. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And then Hazard is also another one who, like, he dives. It's good to just dive with him and keep him up. Oh, Doomfist and Hazard both have a block, which once they're low and they start blocking, you can just burst heal them. Which is pretty nice. Hazard is a lot slower than Doomfist, so I tend to treat Hazard more like a lemming, just because at some point it's going to take Hazard a lot longer to get lower HP than Doomfist. So I can just ignore Hazard for longer. Doomfist is a very, like, I need to watch Doomfist. And then Hazard is more, I just kind of know where he's at and where he's going and who he's diving. And yeah, Hazard's pretty easy to play with. The main thing is, like, you want to capitalize off of his ult. Because if he ults people, you can get into really good positions to, like, kill people behind cover, when Hazard has to be more, like, frontline. Junker Queen and Zarya are very similar, where, like, you kind of want to Mr. President Junker Queen into their backline. So Junker Queen is not a lemming. Junker Queen and Zarya are kind of like a weird third category, where you want to enable them as much as possible to get into their backline. Because if Junker Queen makes it to the enemy team's backline, you kind of win the game. Same thing with Zarya. If Zarya makes it into the back line, you kind of just win the game. I'll talk about Zarya more, but it's kind of hard to stay alive with Junker Queen as Moira, because the shout is like your only peel that Junker Queen can give you, and that's like I think it's like a 12-second cooldown or something. But you just want to stick with your Junker Queen and try to escort her into the back line. Malga is kind of a lemming. You just want to keep him up, and then if you see an opportunity to go into the back line, take it. Malga is going to take a lot of pressure in terms of anti-nades, sleeps, hacks. He's absorbing CC left and right. So just capitalize on that. If he gets antied, just, like, fade into their backline and fight their supports, because you're taking their supports away while he can't be supported. Orissa's kind of in the same boat, but Orissa's, like, very durable, so you can actually use her as a lemming to get into their backline, and then she's usually, like, still alive on, like, 1 HP, and you can save her life, which is cool, because you got good burst healing. So you kind of just want to escort her into their backline or into their front line, and then start fighting their backline. And if she's still alive, just heal her back up. But you kind of want to just leave her to die and then fight their backline. Ramatra is also kind of similar to Zarya and Junker Queen, where, like, if he hits the backline and he's supported, he'll kill everybody. But it's really hard to get Ramatra in there. He also has probably the most potent block in the game, so you can just keep him up forever. But under that same logic, most other supports can also keep him alive forever, as long as the Ramatra is good. So by the time that you get, like, close to the back line, you kind of leave Ramatra and then just start fighting their supports. Reinhardt is also very unique, where you're also kind of just trying to get him to the back line. But Reinhardt just existing absorbs a lot of pressure. So once you get like close to the back line, I would also kind of just leave him, because usually they use a lot of CC to stop, right? They use not CC, but like ability and cooldowns to get Reinhardt to not be in their back line. And when they use those are a prime opportunity for you to dive the back line and kill like 1 or 2 people or trade or something, which is good. These 4 characters don't really have much synergy with Moira in terms of like ultimates or like cooldown usage or like peel from Moira. They're just good tanks. They're big rectangle men and women to divert attention away from Moira. Roadhog kind of fills the same niche as Genji, Tracer, and Echo and Sombra, where you can just dive with Roadhog, but instead of diving, it's just like you and Moira, the Roadhog and the Moira, are just in their backline, creating a mess. Roadhog with a Moira is kind of invincible. It's messed up. It's not cool. Yeah, you just want to make sure that your other team is supported by your other support and the 2 DPS, but like, it's hard to deal with a Roadhog and a Moira, because like they'll try to anti-Moira Roadhog, and then Moira has free reign cooldown wise to just do whatever she wants. So he's kind of a lemming that can just keep himself up together. Moira Roadhog is kind of like the Thanos comp, where you guys are just an inevitability. You just walk on them pretty much. Sigma is really pokey. He's very unique for Moira. If you're playing with a Sigma, it's a very slow, just like trading resources, and out-poking the enemy team, which Moira can do because her balls are infinite range, you just need to throw them well. It's just going to be hard for you to maintain high levels of healing resource. So you either need to find a way to get into their backline and just like leave the Sigma, or make sure you get opportunities to get your healing resource back. There's not really much to say about Sigma. You can keep him up really well because of his ability rotations, where he shields and then he gives people the hands to absorb projectiles and stuff. It's just hard to keep your healing resources up. And then Winton. It's kind of just a Doomfist and D.Va, but watered down, where you just keep him up when he's in his bubble and then help him dive people. Yeah. There's not really much to say about Winston. They just follow him when he dives, and then when he jumps back to your team, heal him. Wrecking Ball is kind of another Roadhog situation, where you can just spend the entire game in their backline with a Wrecking Ball. And the amount of chaos that you guys can create is insane. I play with a ball one trick, and like we'll just be a menace in the back line, and that's how we win. We like don't even see our other 3 teammates sometimes. We're just like harassing and spawn camping their supports. It's messed up. It's not cool. But Moira is kind of just a walking health pack for Wrecking Ball. He's got 700 HP, so that's a lot of ult charge. It's good to just juice him up. And like it's burst heal, where like you're doing like 135 healing a second without ults, you know? So you can get him back up to full almost instantly. It's good. Good. He's one of my more favorite people to dive with. Doomfist and Wrecking Ball are my favorite dive tanks to play with on Moira. Zarya. Zarya's my favorite main tank, or not main tank, but like walking down main with your tank to play with, because Zarya, it fixes a lot of the problems that Moira will encounter. They'll try to sleep you, they'll try to anti you, and then Zarya just says, nah, bubble, booble, which is cool. Also, a lot of people will try to burst Moira just instantly, and Zarya will stop that. The only thing, when you're playing with Zarya, you want to be cognizant of her bubbling you and then you fading immediately, because usually Zarya's and your instinct will coincide, where you'll want to fade something that's coming to you because it deals a lot of damage, and Zarya will want to bubble you because it deals a lot of damage, and she'll get a lot of ult charge from that. So you'll just need to develop a Zarya trigger discipline for your fade. But something I waited to talk about until now is you have extremely good ultimate synergy with Junker Queen and Zarya. If Junker Queen ults and you ult, usually a large chunk of the enemy team is antied, and the burst of your beam is immense. I think you do 85 damage a second with your beam, and then another 50 damage a second with a ball. So you're doing 135 damage a second. And Junker Queen's bleed, I believe, is like 75 damage. So most people die from just a second of Junker Queen ult, beam, and an orb, right? It's disgusting. Also, your beam's AoE, so it team wipes if you guys can collaborate good ults. Likewise, Zarya pulls everybody together. That's enough said. I talked about this with Coalescence, that if you can hit multiple people, your beam is doing immensely more value. So it's easy to just beam the Zarya and still hitting like everybody in the grav, right? It's disgusting. Zarya and Junker Queen are probably one of the best tanks for Moira. Zarya especially just because she can bubble Moira, and it alleviates a lot of the pressure off of Moira. But you can succeed playing with any of these tanks. You just need to use the right playstyle with them. And your playstyle will switch depending on how the game's going. I'll talk about that later. Supports. This is the biggest difference between your playstyle, is depending on what support you have. Tanks is more of a secondary role of like what you're going to be doing, but supports, depending on your support lineup, you're going to be acting differently. Ana, I'm just going to go down the list like I did for the tanks. Ana, for the main part, you kind of want to just keep her alive, and then she's also kind of a lemming, where like if they use too many like cooldowns to kill the Ana, then you can kind of just win the fight as Moira by cleaning up their backline. Also, nano boost with your ult is insane. You can just delete people. If you get nanoed and then you orb and then you beam, you kill somebody in like 0.6 seconds or something dumb. And it's AoE, so you'll just like clear a whole team of squishies with comboing your ult. It's really good. Moira is also very good at capitalizing on her anti-nades, where most characters cannot. Like on the DPS roster, minus like Genji or like Tracer or something. Somebody who can get like right up next to the slept target or the anti target. Yeah, it's just really easy to follow up on Ana's utility. Baptiste is pretty okay. Oh, another thing before I move on is Ana can solo heal. She has to reload, and she's usually getting dove, but you can funny flank with an Ana, as long as you're communicating that you're funny flanking and that the Ana is solo healing. I'm going to preface that for every character. Make sure you tell your other support that you're leaving and they are solo healing. Baptiste is another one that's really easy to solo heal on. He can take care of like a full team. He's got great utility with lamp, self-heal. The only downside to playing Baptiste with Moira is you can't really utilize his window too well. When you throw an orb through a window, it doesn't actually increase the damage, it just increases the tick rate, which isn't that bad. It's just not as good as some other supports, and we're going to talk about that. But like, Ana I feel like is a better pairing than Bap. But Bap is still really good. Both you and Bap are shooters, so you can kind of just run over the enemy team with DPS. Brig is pretty good with Moira. Brig usually enables a DPS. So like Brig will sit with like a Widow, a Soldier, or like an Ashe up on the high ground, or sometimes even a Sigma. You know, if you have a Brig with a Sigma, they're pretty much good forever. And you can like focus on the rest of the team. Brig can also pack you, which greatly increases your survivability. I'll see that I'll get triple packed and I'll just like not stand still, but I'll keep AD strafing whoever I'm fighting because I know that I'm good based on her regen and my regen. Yeah, it's nice. They're good pairing together. The only thing is you guys don't really synergize well with like ults and everything, so you kind of want to peter your ults out where like she'll ult first and then you'll ult, or like you'll ult first and then she'll ult. You don't really want to ult at the same time. Illari, you guys are both killers. You're going to be doing the brunt of the healing with an Illari. Oh, you're also going to be doing most of the healing with Brig too. I forgot to mention that. But with Illari, you're going to be doing most of the healing just because her beam isn't the best, and relying on a pylon for main heals isn't fun. I wouldn't do that. And most Illaris kind of just use the pylon to heal themselves, right? But yeah, if you're with an Illari, you're going to be doing main heals pretty much. So just make sure everybody's topped up and don't go on too many funny flanks. If you're going to go on a funny flank, make sure you have your ultimate. And you can actually combo with Illari's ultimate, because usually Illari will ult and then they'll get shielded off, so you can't pop the suns. But with your ult, you can pop the suns with your ult. Or even like an orb that just goes to the shield, and it's just like enough damage to pop the ult and it'll do the chain reaction. So they're pretty good together, Illari and Moira. It's just, you have to be cognizant that you're healing most of the time, and Illari is not. Juno can kind of solo heal. There's not really much to say other than you gotta capitalize on her ult, because her ult is really good and it only increases the tick rate of your damage orb, but it's is really good for your beam. So you can like beam, you can throw an orb and beam and follow her ult, and you'll be doing a lot of damage. There's not really much to say about Juno. She just gives people speed boosts, which increases the effectiveness of your AD strafing, which is cool. And you can keep her alive pretty easily. It's pretty easy to healing resource her, unlike Pharah and Echo, which are kind of hard to chase down. Juno stays pretty low to the ground, and she also AD strafes pretty good, pretty well. So it's easy to keep her up against enemies. And yeah, I'd say the only downside having Juno is it's hard for the Juno to heal you, because she doesn't really have much burst healing outside of her right click and her left click together. But her left click is kind of hard for her to hit you while you're AD strafing. Same thing with Ana. Whereas like Bap, Brig, Illari, it's also hard for her to hit you. But Bap, Brig, Kiriko, they just lock onto you, you know? The heals just happen, where Juno and Ana have to shoot you. Yeah. Kiriko. She kind of fills the role as Zarya, where like she can just cleanse CC off of you, and you're naturally going to be absorbing a lot of CC as Moira. So that's really good. She can also pretty effectively solo heal, so you can do funny flanks with Kiri. Also comboing with her ult, your beam, your right click, and your orb tick rate doesn't change or hurt your damage, but you'll get like 2.5 orbs per Kiri ult, which is nuts. So you can orb, and then I'd wait, and then orb again, and then coal, and you'll get like a pretty big damage boost, and that's really good for siphoning resources off of the enemy team supports. Yeah, it's pretty good. Kiri's like one of my favorite supports to play with as Moira. Lifeweaver is another one of my favorite supports. He can just pull you out of danger, which is like a plus. His pedal gives you really fun rollouts, which is nice. I love pedal rollouts. And then he's just really good at solo healing, and he can keep himself up with pedal and like pulling you back if he needs help. But he's really good to just do funny flanks with, and just to not worry about your team because he'll be fine. And he can also fill a similar role to Brig, where he can pocket a sniper like Widow or Hanzo or Torbjorn or Ashe, and you're just fine. Or not you're just fine, they're just fine. Where like they're practically immortal. And you just need to worry about the other people on your team. There's not much to say about him other than he's a fantastic healer, and you can funny flank to your heart's content with the Lifeweaver. Lucio is probably going to be your hardest matchup. Not to say that it's bad. Lucio Moira is very good in rush comp. You just need to make sure that you're on top of your healing game, because you're going to be the only reliable heals. Because most of the time Lucio is like speeding the tank or like another DPS, and he's not with the whole team at the same time. Or he's just by himself DPSing in the backline, which is perfectly valid. You're going to be low on healing resource a lot, so it's actually more beneficial to do little spritzes of your healing resource and throwing damage orbs to keep yourself topped off on healing resource. And you want to be right-clicking as much as you can while keeping your team topped up. The number one thing to focus on when playing with a Lucio is keeping your team topped up. When he beats, that's probably the best time to get healing resource back. But outside of that, just find as many opportunities as you can to right-click for healing resource. Yeah. But Lucio is very potent on a team that can keep everybody up. So you're going to be main healing, and then giving auxiliary damage whenever you can. Yeah. Mercy. A lot of people hate Mercy in the meta right now, but I love Mercy. I love Mercy. Moira Mercy is kind of a power couple. Not to say that Mercy can solo heal, but you can int and die and trade for like a good trade, and Mercy can just bring you back as long as she has res. So you need to be cognizant of her res cooldown. But Mercy is pretty good for Moira, and then Moira makes up for a lot of the shortcomings of Mercy. You have AoE burst healing, so you can get people up really fast, which means Mercy is just blue beaming more people. And Moira is a very good blue beam target for Mercy, because your damage orb gives her a lot of ult charge, and she only needs to give you blue beam as you throw the damage orb, a lot like Ashe Dynamite. So you're just a very good passive ult charge target for Mercy if you're communicating your orb cooldowns. And on top of that, just coal and right-click damage amplification is very potent. It makes killing people a lot more consistent. Mercy Moira is very good. Also, you are one of the best characters to save Mercy's life. You can set yourself up in positions to give her very good Guardian Angel angles. That's the word. And then finally Zenyatta. Zenyatta is also one of my favorite supports to play with. It's really funny. Zenyatta Moira, you're primarily main healing, but you can also funny flank given the right opportunities, because Zenyatta Moira has incredibly high DPS. The biggest advantage of this is you're kind of racing the other support comp for resources. So you just want to kill people as fast as you can. You can also use Zenyatta as a lemming, which is pretty fucked up, but I do that probably like 50% of the time if I have a Zenyatta on my team. People will overextend to dive the Zenyatta, and you're not going to be able to save him, even with burst heals. It's depressing, but that's just how it is. So when they use a lot of cooldowns for Zenyatta, you dive their backline and trade. And usually your trade is more worth the Zenyatta's life, which is depressing, but that's just how it be. Zenyatta is a beautiful dying star that everyone bears witness to. That's probably the best way to describe your relationship with Zenyatta. You also, when he ults, you don't need to worry about healing. So you just start DPSing, which is pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are kind of a power couple. You guys are both killers. It's great. I love it. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to 1v1 every single character in the game. We use the 1v1 arena code TXCXX, and unfortunately it doesn't have Lifeweaver, Juno, Hazard, and I think Ramatra, but every other character is in it. I don't know why it has Mauga but not Ramatra, because Mauga came out later than Ramatra. But yeah, we're gonna go through every single character. It's TXCXX as like the workshop code, so a lot of the characters are tweaked in very slightly ways, very slightly like different from like their base kits. For the most part, the philosophy of 1v1ing people is the same. I have a clip of Bap where he doesn't have his lamp, but that kind of just lets him live for longer in the Moira 1v1. But yeah, well, we'll get into it. Alright, we're gonna be 1v1ing Ana. Ana's a bad bitch, alright? This is probably one of the 3 characters, or no, one of the 4 characters that I'd say like counters Moira, especially in a 1v1 setting. Ana has 2 very good abilities to just shut down Moira, being, or technically 3, if you count Nano, because like you could be 1v1ing another target and then they get nanoed and you kind of just die. But outside of that, Anti-Nade stops your self-healing and heals herself, which is insane. And then Sleep basically just puts you on the ground. You know, you're slept, which leads to other people just walking up and then one-shotting you. So you gotta be really careful. If you have to fade one of the 2, I would fade the Anti-Nade, because you can get Anti'd, fade, and then throw a healing orb, and your healing orb will still be healing you while you're slept. So if you have to eat one of the 2, eat the Sleep. But again, this also depends on the situation. Try not to eat either, because it increases your likelihood of surviving. But you just trading with the Ana is really good. Or eating both of her cooldowns is also really good. Ashe is a pretty simple 1v1. Just don't get shot, 5-head. Sorry, that's not good advice. So the biggest thing to look out for is trying to fade her shotgun, which usually you're going to use fade to close the distance. But if you get hit by shotgun, usually she has a guaranteed headshot on you. So you can like turn around and look down to try to force a body shot instead of a headshot. But yeah, by the time she shotguns, usually she's dead. Another thing to look out for is her dynamite. If you can fade the initial damage of her dynamite or just the burning ticks after, that's a lot of value. And it's a very long cooldown, so you can fade her dynamite and then wait for your fade to come up to re-engage on her. Outside of that, AD strafing wise, just try to crouch when she's about to shoot. When she's aimed down sights, she has a lot slower of an attack speed. So that's when you want to time your crouches. It's like right when she's about to shoot. But usually Ashes will do this thing where they'll do a aim down sight shot followed up by a quick shot immediately, because they can like headshot you and then body shot and you die. So it's kind of harder to like anticipate the second shot. But if you can play your distance well and get on her without using your own cooldowns, then this is a pretty easy 1v1. Baptiste is kind of a pushover. All of his abilities kind of just delay the inevitable of you just killing him. You don't want to throw a damage orb, because he'll use immortality and all of that damage will be wasted and he'll kill you. You want to throw a healing orb and just outlast his abilities. If you are right-clicking him when he uses immortality field, you are still regenning HP. So as long as you're not being lazy with your AD strafing, you should just be able to out-heal his damage. If he's nasty with it, if he's sick with it, he'll kill you before you end up killing him. But I haven't really come across many BAPs that can do that. So yeah, just keep right-clicking him. Don't freak out. If you need to, fade like an initial bit of burst. But for the most part, you throw a healing orb and just right-click him. You'll do fine. So Bastion's more of a skill matchup. You kind of want to fade his explosive, his sticky grenade, and also you want to fade to get away from his turret form. But you can't do both. So you have to choose which one's more worth it to fade. This arena is also pretty bad to fight Bastion in, just because there's not a lot of cover to hide behind while he's in turret form. But in like a regular arena or like a regular map, you kind of just want to play hit and run, where you bait out his turret form, and then you wait until it's over, and then you re-engage him. But I don't really have the luxury in this arena. And then you also want to be throwing a heal orb, just because it's going to be really rough for you to get through his initial armor. And unless you have like a really good damage orb angle, then heal orbs are going to keep you up longer. Brigitte, this one's kind of fun, kind of a funny matchup, just because if you're close range, she beats you if she got the first hit in, and then if you're engaging from a distance, usually you win the fight. But the hardest part about fighting Brig is her shield. She can block a lot of your damage with her shield, and she can block your orb damage with her shield. So as you're getting close to her, you want to start meleeing her so that you can pierce her shield with your punch. Other than that, try to fade her whip, because that's a lot of burst damage, and also getting in, that will give her regen, where otherwise she wouldn't have any regen before like the actual fight starts. But as long as you're meleeing her, you should be good. Cassidy. This is one of, I'm not going to say her hard counters, but Cassidy's a counter, to say the least. He has an effective range of, I think, 25 meters. They just recently nerfed him to 25, down from 30. which is pretty oppressive. He can start shooting you for pretty high damage before you can even start hitting him, unless you throw an orb at him. And then if you do get too close, you can't AD strafe anymore because he'll hit you with flash. So you want to try to close the distance without using your fade, because if you get close to him with your fade, then he's just gonna flash you, right click, roll, right click you to death. It's not good. Also, if you do mess up your fade, his ult will kill you way before you'll kill him with either, or you might be able to kill him with your ult and then like an orb before his ult kills you. But he'll kill you before your orb right click kills him with his ult. So try to fade behind cover when you're fighting Cassidy, if you know he has ult. Cassidy also has a pretty easily telegraphed left click, like attack speed, so I would change your positioning with your AD strafing right before he's about to shoot. That makes it the hardest for him to shoot you, which is pretty good. Doomfist is one of the harder matchups that you're going to have as Moira, mainly because he can keep up with you. So basically when you see a Doomfist, you're going to need to fight him, at least if he notices that you're there and he's looking at you. The best way to fight a Doomfist is to fade his punches, because his punches are what lead to a lot of his burst damage. He'll try to punch you and then follow up with a shot, which you won't be able to fade before the shot hits you. Now, there also is an argument to fading when he slams, because almost all of Doom's verticality is from his slam. He can hit a sick diag and get to a high ground, or like do a bounce punch and get to a high ground with you. But if he slams and you know there's like a high ground that I'm not going to say that he can't get to, because Dooms will find a way. But if there's a high ground that you can abuse, I'd go up there, because he might not be able to follow you. And then outside of that, fade his punches. Don't charge his powered up punch unless you need healing resource and you're just getting like a little bit of a juice back from him. But even then, that could give him powered up punch. And then if he's like low HP, you might as well charge his punch, just because like that puts his punch cooldown on a higher cooldown. As an example, if he punches into you and then he starts blocking and you just charge his punch, after he uses his block, if you didn't charge his punch, he would have gotten his punch back sooner. But when you charge his block and then he uses like the empowered punch, you could just fade it, and then you're technically putting his punch on a higher cooldown, which is cool. But that's more advanced. For the most part, just don't charge his punch, unless like you have a plan to deal with his powered up punch. But yeah, Doom is a lot of fun to fight. Just make sure you don't get punched into a wall. D.Va. D.Va's probably the hardest counter there is to Moira. She just eats your balls, you know? That's like really all there is to it. You want to be really sneaky with your orbs. I'll either throw them out of line of sight, so like behind some cover, to where they'll still hit me, but the D.Va can't eat them, or just throw them behind me. Usually the D.Va will try to fly for the orb, and that gets you a lot of free damage. But D.Va's is brutal. It's a brutal fight. Half of her health is armor. So you're doing 40 damage a second instead of 60. And on top of that, she eats your orbs. So you're going to be there for a very long time. That being said, outside of a 1v1, Moira is probably one of the best characters to deal with D.Va. Because when she DMs, Moira can still do consistent damage to her. And D.Va usually only starts DMing when they lose their orange health, or their armor, right? So, I noticed we're talking about 1v1s, but I'm kind of just talking about killing D.Va at this point. For the 1v1 specifically, it's going to be very close. Don't give up on AD strafing. You want to fade once she uses her micro missiles, because that adds a lot of burst damage. And then try to sneak an orb in. If you can get a heal orb, or like after you stripped her armor, a damage orb in, both of those are incredible value, even if it's just for like a couple ticks, because like fights with D.Va are going to be extremely close. If either you or the D.Va gets like a lick of heals from like any outside source, that usually guarantees the fight in each other's favor, like whoever gets the heals. So just AD strafe, break your keyboard, mash those buttons like your life depends on it. Echo's another harder matchup. Her primary fire is very deadly, but you don't want to fade until she uses Stickies. Stickies is the #1 ability you want to fade on Echo. You want to make sure you're always above 50% HP so her beam doesn't finish you off. And the biggest way for her to do that is Stickies. So if you fade because you took a headshot, just try not to take Stickies, because that will just kill you. Yeah, Echo's a kind of an easy fight once you know how to dodge, which it's kind of also like Cassidy in terms of how you want to dodge, where like you're just waiting for her to be about to shoot and then you juke in another direction. But it's faster, she has a faster attack speed, and she's got projectiles. So it's a little bit harder to dodge at close range, but the further you are, the more you can kind of just walk out of the way of her bullets. Yeah. Genji's more of a skill matchup than like, most people are like, oh, Genji's countered by Moira, but no, it's really close. It's more of a skill matchup. You want to be extra sure that he does not deflect your orbs, both healing and damage orbs. To do this, I'll throw a healing orb behind me, and then I'll just backpedal into the damage orb, because as long as he's already dashed, then there's no way that he's going to be able to deflect it, and that should be an easy kill. That being said, 2 right clicks and a melee, and you're dead to the head if he headshots with all 3 of those shurikens. So you want to be extra careful when you're fighting Genji, and try to either jump or crouch when he's about to right click. Jumping is pretty good if he's like kind of like on top of you, just because it's harder for the projectiles to hit your head, and if you're longer range, jumping is less effective. It's weird how that works, but yeah, just be careful when you jump. Hanzo is probably Moira's hardest counter. He is very oppressive. He does full damage at all ranges, and if you get close, it's kind of a death sentence. That being said, there are ways to fight him still. I was talking earlier about Genji, and you kind of want to jump so the projectiles don't hit your head. This applies here with Hanzo. If you jump, it makes it harder for him to headshot you, and you kind of want to jump like right as he shoots. Because if you jump, he can, like, before he shoots, he can aim and shoot you correctly as you're coming down. Because when you jump, it's easier for people to track you. So when you're fighting him, I would try to dodge as many arrows as you can to get into right-click range, and then once you're in right-click range, and you know you can kill him, fade above his head, and then throw an orb down. That's not going to work 100% of the time, so just be unpredictable. fading above him is just like a safe bet because it's harder for him to headshot you. But if you can fade to like a weird spot where you can still hit him and it's like disorienting, then that's good. You're gonna die a lot to Hanzo. He outranges you by like 1 billion miles, so good luck. So really quick, we're gonna go over the people I missed. Hazard. He's a more difficult 1v1 just because he has 2 separate one-shot combos on you. So you'll either want to fade the wall or his jump. And then after that, it's kind of just regular AD strafing, you know? Get your dodges in. The main thing is he's got Deceptive Burst, and his jump is on a shorter cooldown than your jump. So when you're fading, try to go to your friends or try to juke him so that you can outrun his jump, which he can kind of just follow you with his jump. His jump is a little bit longer than your fade. So fade jump to high ground or be careful. Iliari. This is also another pretty easy fight for Moira. There's 2 main ways of killing her. The first way is you just throw a heal orb and you just destroy her pylon and then you destroy her. Or you just throw a damage orb at her and kill her. The latter is a little bit riskier because she could shift away from your damage orb and still be in range of her pylon. But if you catch her by surprise and she's like already low HP or you know she doesn't have like her shift, it's an easy frag to just throw your damage orb and kill her. Now, it's so easy for you to survive against her because she doesn't actually do too much more damage with her headshot. It's 125 versus 75. So realistically, the only way she can kill you with a healing orb up is if she hits 3 consecutive headshots, which is possible. It's just with good AD strafing, you should be fine. Yeah, Ilari's kind of easy to kill. Junker Queen. This one's another harder matchup. The long story short is save your fade for her axe, for Carnage. But you gotta be careful. If she has her ult, which fighting Junker Queen usually gives her ult just because of how long killing Junker Queen will take and how much ult charge you'll give her from her doing damage to you, but you not dying. So you'll take a lot of damage and it'll take a while to kill her because she has a little bit of self-regen and you have a lot of self-regen. So just when you fade after her axe, be careful where you're fading because she just might follow it up with an ult. And your AD strafing should be pretty similar to what you do for Cass and Reaper, where you kind of just crouch or jump right before she's about to shoot. She's got a kind of a slower attack speed, and you just need to get used to it through fighting her. But yeah, she's a simple but difficult fight. Junkrat is an interesting 1v1. Basically, if he gets the drop on you, you die. If you get the drop on him, you have a pretty good fighting chance. You want to be fading his left-click mine combo, because that one-shots you. If you know a mine is about to hit you, just fade it, because then he'll use the mine. Or if you know a left click is going to hit you, then fade it, because he'll use a mine immediately after. You want to conserve as much HP as possible, because his concussion mines are a lot easier to hit than his left clicks. That being said, it's pretty easy to dodge his left clicks just by using regular movement. Just don't walk into the Skittles, and you should be fine. Juno's a pushover. Just throw a damage orb at her. Right click her to death. Her DPS, I think, is 50, So you just right-clicking her consistently, she's dealing 20 DPS to you. So she'll have 10 seconds if you're hitting every tick of your right-click to kill you. Which is pretty depressing. Juno kind of just falls over in the Moira 1v1. So don't even sweat.
Kiriko. Kiriko's surprisingly lethal. They also buffed her, so before her crits did more damage than her like regularly hitting. I mean, they always do more damage, but her kunais did like 40 damage, and then a headshot did like 112. Now headshots deal 120, and body shots deal like 60. So her just hitting you is bad. Before, you could kind of just walk up to Kiris and then jump in their face, and they would never headshot you and they'd fall over. The same is still the case, but if they hit like a body shot and then 2 headshots, you die. Versus before, they'd need to hit like 3 headshots in a row to kill you. So just be careful, because you'll think that you have the upper hand. She'll Suzu herself, headshot you, and then melee you, and you'll fall over. It's scary. Throw a healing orb. Damage orbs are good if you have the jump on her, but usually she'll just Suzu and then TP away, and you'll have wasted your orb. Whereas if you throw a healing orb, you can use it after shit hits the fan. Okay. Lucio's another fight that can kind of just take forever. So just throw a heal orb, make sure your health is high, because he does have a surprisingly high amount of burst, and he can do it kind of consistently if he boops you and then goes for a triple headshot volley. I would save your fade for when he's got his boop up, so either fade initially when he's about to boop you, or just off of vibes when you think he's gonna boop you, or like right after he boops you, you can fade, and then he'll miss the volley of headshots. But yeah, just keep your health high, and you should be able to win this fight pretty easy. It just takes a little bit. Lucio heals himself or just runs away. Mauma. Mauga's surprisingly easy for Moira to fight. The only thing you gotta watch out for is the cage fight, because then you can't fade. But outside of that, fade his slam, fade his funny jump, and you should be fine. Alternatively, you can also fade his hee-haw when he activates his lifesteal. Just because he will be hitting you and he'll heal a lot of his health. So if you can just stop him from doing that, that's good. Just make sure you don't get slammed after you fade, because he's coming for that ass. Things to note, this is very good AD strafing practice, because he's kind of just like 2 bastions, and yeah, like no amount of AD strafing when he's close to you is going to avoid every bullet. So just make sure you're not getting headshot, because that gives him overhealth, and good luck. Mei is a weird one to fight. She's very stally, so she can keep a lot of your attention for a very long time. If the Mei is left clicking, you've already won. Just throw a heal orb, follow her, you'll never die. On the contrary, if she starts right clicking, just start jumping. Again, with the other characters that I've said use projectiles, she has a projectile. So if you're above her, it's harder for the projectile hitbox to connect with your head. Her headshots are very deadly. She just needs to headshot, body shot you, and you fall over if you're at long range. So when you're close range, make sure you got a heal orb up and try to jump right as her shot's coming out. You can crouch sometimes, it's a pretty good mix-up, but generally just jump. Mercy is pretty laughable. Just throw a heal orb and suck her to death. Alternatively, you can throw a damage orb and just murder her, but she could GA to another person. And it's pretty rare that you're fighting a Mercy 1v1. So I would just err on caution of throwing a heal orb and just sustaining yourself through a potential 1v2. But if it's truly a 1v1 with the Mercy, a damage orber. Just, yeah. Or maybe befriend her, you know? Yeah, not every game is won by killing everybody, you know? Sometimes games are won with the friends that we've made along the way. But just kill her, just murder her. Alright, now we've gone to the final boss of 1v1s, the Moira 1v1. This is going to take literally forever. A couple things to note. I will usually never use my ult, just because using it in the Moira 1v1 is kind of a waste. And doing the Moira 1v1 will usually attract another person just because of how long it takes for either of you to die if you guys have good orb management. So if you throw a healing orb and you're right-clicking, you literally out-heal every single combo. Or that's not true. So you do 65 damage with your right-click and then 50 with an orb. So you're dealing 115 damage a second, while the self-heal is 30 and then the healing orb is 65. So you're doing about 20 damage a second if you throw a damage orb, but then you don't have a heal orb going on yourself. And the heal orb does 350 health, where the damage orb only does 200 health. So you need to choose your damage orb at a very decisive time. That being said, you're pretty much just going to be heal orb and then running around the arena looking at each other. It's really funny. It's very good for padding stats if you're into that. I've had a bunch of ranked games, probably like 5 or 6 at this point, where it's like me and another Moira will just start looking at each other, and we just longingly stare at each other's eyes for the entire Overwatch game. And that's a valid way to win or lose a game, you know? At that point, you tried your hardest, and you and the other Moira played a very tactical game, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Just win the 1v1. You got it. Oh, one more thing, actually, before I go. They nerfed it to where before the highest DPS was to right-click and then melee as soon as you can. That is no longer the highest DPS, so just right-clicking is higher DPS than weaving in melees, which is kind of unfortunate. It kind of lowers the skill ceiling. However, the person I'm 1v1ing, Tskune, brought up a wonderful point. I'm putting that up on screen now, where hitting somebody with melees causes people to freak out, and I agree, that is scary. So if you're against a Moira and you notice they have bad orbs, maybe weave in a couple melees, you know, freak them out a little bit. Also, weaving in a melee before you fade is always good because it's just a quick burst that you wouldn't have anyways. Yeah. That's pretty much it for the Moira 1v1. It's a wet noodle fight. You're going to be there for an hour. Alright, good luck. Orisa. This is another harder matchup, but it's kind of easy given the right rooms. You want to position properly to fight an Orisa. And the 1v1 arena is kind of rough for Moira to position in. Especially for Orisa, there's a wall everywhere. But you want to stand your back not to a wall and not to a cliff, and then also have a good spot to throw your orb up and down. She can also eat your orb, so you want to be careful about that. But